Right. Welcome to Unlocked Investor. I'm your host, Ian Robertson, and today I am joined by Loretta Wolff. Loretta is the founding broker of Next Level Real Estate and author of The Empowered Agent. Welcome, Loretta.
Thank you so much, Ian, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. Today I want to really just dive deep into what it would look like for somebody to buy their first investment property.
Investment. Okay, so are we
There's
talking?
a lot of different ways that we could talk about
Yeah,
this.
a lot of different ways.
Primarily what I think most people look at when they think about their first investment property is a long-term rental. But that certainly stems off anywhere. I mean, it could be a piece of land, it could be a short-term rental. There's all sorts of different ways that we could go with this. We'll start with the basics of like long-term rental strategy, and then we can branch off from there.
Okay, fair enough. So, as an investor myself and someone who owns multiple properties, long-term rentals usually seem to be the easiest. So I know for an investor who's just looking to get started, long-term investments are a little bit easier to manage. Obviously, you want to make sure you have the right realtor partner and the right finance team. So that's always important. And knowing how you're going to finance the deal really is something that you have to do beforehand. You don't want to get into a deal and then go, oh no, how am I going to raise the money for this? Or what is this going to cost me? So it's really important to work with a lender to make sure that you know what it is that you could afford, and what you are going to make, like what your profit would potentially be on that. And I know a lot of my first time home buyers are like, how can I maximize my home and still start and kind of dip my toe into investing? And if you have an FHA loan or first time home buyer loan, you can get a multifamily house where you live in one of the units. And that seems a lot of what we're dealing with right now in the climate, is that there's a lot of first time home buyers that are like, I don't mind living there for 2 years, doing an FHA loan so I have the low down payment, and then renting it out to somebody to help offset the cost of the mortgage. The other thing that I'm finding is it's really important to know that with an FHA loan, you are allowed up to 4 units for it to be self-sustaining. So you can do more than a duplex. You can do a triplex or 4 units, but anything after that is considered commercial. So it wouldn't qualify for an FHA loan.
Right. That's a really practical way for somebody, pretty much anybody, to be able to access real estate. Let's say I own a really nice house already, and I do not want to have tenants live with me. Like I don't want them in the same building as me. How can I figure out if I can even afford a rental property? Like, because I know when we were first looking for a house, it was sort of like a catch-22 in a lot of ways. Like lenders don't want to talk to you because they're so busy until you actually have a property. But you also need to have a conversation with a lender before you know what you can afford or what sort of parameters to be looking out for.
Yeah. Valid points. All of those are valid points. And that's why building your team, your real estate team, is really important, and taking the time to do that. So if a lender doesn't want to talk to you until you found a property, find a different lender. There are plenty of lenders out there that will pre-approve you and give you different options. Just like you might not like your realtor and you're going to use somebody else, you might not like your lender, and you have to deal with them just as much as you have to deal with your realtor. And so, there's a difference between a mortgage banker and a mortgage broker. And there's a difference in the services that they offer and what is available to them. So I know in one of my offices in Sullivan County, there's a local bank that is doing an amazing thing with closing cost coverage and all of this stuff, but that's their product. So you're never going to get a broker that's going to broker out their same deal. But if you go to the bank directly, they might have a little bit more say in whether or not you get something. The problem with a local bank that's not a national bank would be that a lot of times there's more restrictions on credit score and things like that. So if you don't have near perfect credit, you might not get to take advantage of something from a local bank, where I know some people have reached out to some national banks, and the national banks have a little bit more products, but at the same time, a broker's able to shop for the best product that services your specific needs. So, based on your credit score, your debt to income ratio, and your stuff, here's a list of different options that they have to get you in the best product. And the best product, as a first time home buyer, might not be an FHA loan. It might be a conventional, or maybe you get a better deal with a DSCR if you're talking about investments.
Right. Okay. So obviously we hope for the best when we're buying a rental property, but that's not the case. That is rarely the case, is the best case scenario that you're thinking in your head. So what are some things that could go wrong, that probably will go wrong, or that at least you should consider when you're looking for the property itself?
You could need a well. Speaking from experience. So there's a lot of things. So when you're looking for a rental, there are options, and there are a lot of opportunity where you can buy houses right now with tenants in the property. And if the tenants are good tenants and they're paying on time regularly, you may consider keeping them. And that's a conversation if an investor is selling the property as an investment property and not willing to get rid of the tenants. That's the question to ask, or have your realtor ask. Like, what does it look like? How have the rents been paid? Have they been on time? Are they cash? Are they check? Like, what do those things look like? You do have to have leases. So if they're on a month to month, I would recommend, as part of the negotiation, that you renegotiate leases.
Right. And so I guess part of that negotiation process, though, if the rent that they're currently receiving is well below current market rent, then that tenant very well might not want to stay in that property anymore. So there's not, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this, but is there any communication that you'd have directly with the tenant before the sale?
Well, there could be, right? Like, you've looked at properties before, sometimes the homeowner's there. It's the same thing if you're going in as a landlord, right? So you're going to ask the questions of the tenants that are there, whether you decide to keep them in place or not. You're going to ask them, what's your landlord like? What are some of the struggles that you find? Like, and again, it's all back to building a team that knows the questions to ask.
And so why would somebody want to sell their property that already has a tenant in, that's a good tenant, so to speak? Why would what would be a couple of reasons that somebody would want to do that, and it's not like a gotcha type situation?
Oh, so you maybe think it's like, I'm going to put these tenants on you, and that's what you're going to get?
This tenant is actually the worst. They pay every month. They call me at 2:00 in the morning every single night and complain about something.
Yeah, no. So think like an investor, not a homeowner, right? So if you're an investor and you're looking at your portfolio, maybe the property isn't bringing, because you have lower rents, maybe the property is not bringing in as much as you need it or want it to bring in. And the landlord laws and rules and good cause eviction and all of these things with the new laws that came out, they make it difficult to raise rents if you don't do it within a certain time range. So it could be that they're restructuring their portfolio. It could be, I have had where parents have owned it and have passed, and the kids don't want to deal with it. I've had it where the landlord is ill and not able to just maintain and give the good quality of life that you would have to give as a landlord, to make sure all the systems are up to date. It could be that it's too much work to update it, and too much money to update it, that they just get rid of it. So, but again, when you have your investor hat on, you're not necessarily thinking about why they're getting rid of it after you have a conversation with the tenants and talk to them.
Okay. So you mentioned that it could be that they don't want to manage the property anymore. When thinking about, okay, I found a property that I think I like. I don't know though if I want to manage it myself or if I want to hire a property management company to oversee it for me. What are some considerations there to decide that for yourself? Because everybody's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, so proximity is first and foremost. If you're buying a property, an investment property that's not in an area that's within an hour distance from you, I would say reach out and try and find a property management company. I do want to say a property manager is different than somebody that just comes and cleans your house and calls like the lawnmower guy. Like I've seen an influx of cleaning people that are claiming that they're property managers. And if you're collecting rent on behalf of somebody, you need to go to a broker. It needs to be a real estate broker. There are in certain areas, like down in the city, they have property management companies that specialize in that. But I wouldn't just have your cleaning lady manage your property. It's more than just making sure the garbage is out and the lawn is mowed.
Right.
That's a big thing. So if you can't get there or you didn't, maybe let's say it's a place that you didn't grow up and you don't know anybody, you might not know who the local handyman is, or, a contractor or somebody that can pop in and do any work that needs to be done in case something, in case you get that call, like, hey, the furnace is out. Like, if you don't have those people in your pocket, I would definitely say reach out and interview property management companies. If it's a place that you know and you feel like you can, and then it gets to be too much, and then you want to hire a property, that's what I see a lot of people do on the long term and the short term side. So long term, there's not as much turnover and stuff like that. If you're hiring a property manager, you're probably wanting them to collect rents, screen tenants, do things like that. Realtors can screen tenants and do that for you. Real estate brokers are able to collect rents on your behalf and divvy up money and stuff like that. So it's doable. And sometimes people go in and they're like, I can do this. And then it's like, maybe not.
So either way, then it's probably a good idea to budget enough of the rental income to go towards a property management company. And if you decide you're going to do it yourself, then great, you pocketed some extra money. And if you don't want to, at least you know that there's enough filler in there to be able to afford that.
Not just that, but a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm going to do this and then, I'm going to make double of what I made, and, mortgage payment's going to be this and this is going to be this, and I'm going to make a lot of money. And then it's like, okay, well, what about making sure that the property is maintained unless you put that on your tenant? What about if something goes wrong and the systems decide to fail on you on a random winter freezing cold night, and you're like, what do I do? So it really is one of those situations where you have to budget the whole amount and almost expect not to make, you can't expect to make money overnight. It's not going to happen.
Right. And I feel like that's why short-term rentals were like such a boom, because everybody's like wanting short-term rentals because wow, I can make 4 times as much money in a month by doing it this way. Where do you see short-term rentals in all of this? Do you think that it's oversaturated? Do you think, like, how do you view that in comparison to a long-term rental?
You can't really compare the two. Long-term rentals, there's always going to be people who need rentals. It's definitely one of those things where there are really truly people in this world that never want to own a home. So you're always going to have people who need a place to live. Short-term rentals came really, like, literally boomed overnight. COVID hit, people wanted to get out of the city, and short-term rentals went through the roof. And what's happening is there's a lot of townships and things like that where you have to get a permit, you have to get an inspection to make sure the property is safe. If you register it as a short-term rental individually, that's okay, but there's a new law that's coming in play in April, where if you are a short-term rental management company, you have to start collecting tax, and you're going to be taxed, and you have to be licensed with the Department of State. So there's a lot of stuff to try and regulate it a little bit more, right? Because it was like you're saying, it was like boom, like, oh my goodness, short-term rentals are everywhere. And knowing that, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to Airbnb. And I know I've said this from the beginning, it has to be an experience. People aren't just looking for a house, they're looking for somewhere clean, that they are close to something to do. But like you're saying, it's very saturated. So in order to stand out, you have to, one, be prepared to not, like, you have to figure out what is more important to you. You want top dollar, or do you want it booked all the time? So I know with our company, we look and watch it and watch how the flow is during the months and all of that, to see if we need to adjust the price accordingly to get it full. Because if it's sitting there vacant, you're not making money. And more people are like, oh, well, if I can do $400 a night, well, but what do I say? 0% of 0 is 0, right? Like, if it's not booked, you're not making any money, right? So it's more important to fill it, even if it's $100 less, at $300 instead of $400 a night, and somebody fill it, than it just sitting there empty, because you're not making money if it's empty.
That's right. That's why airlines, you wait till the last minute. You might not get a seat on the flight, but if you can,
right,
it'll be cheaper.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. So that makes sense. So, and also the location wouldn't necessarily be the same between a long-term rental and a short-term rental. Long-term rental could be just about anywhere. Short-term rental does have to, like you said, be in close proximity to something, or be specifically away,
like a cabin in the woods, kind of like, and it's a cabin in the woods in the middle of nowhere, but that's what you're going for.
Right.
So
yeah. So, okay. So then let's flip it to your business yourself, Loretta. So you are all about empowered agents.
Yes.
So what would you say to somebody that is looking to join a real estate company, or also just they're in it, they've been in it a while, it's sort of lulling out, it seems like a hard grind? How do they become an empowered agent?
Okay, so we're shifting gears to the book. So the empowered agent and the empowered agency. So that's all about branding and branding yourself. And so what I've learned in this industry is, and I kind of learned it the hard way, but I've never been with a franchise. I've always been with non-franchise brokerages, and I feel like they give a little bit more one-on-one attention. I do know that you have to market yourself, and you don't have that brand. And so, but you're your brand. I know it sounds so weird. So like, something that I do, and I'm very into community everything. Like, I'm all about giving as much as I can where I can. So when it comes to being an empowered agent, a lot of my content and stuff like that is about who I am as an individual. And the empowered agency helps agents, and not just agents with my company, but it could be any agent who's looking to rebrand themselves and just help with the social media aspect of it, and do like a total 360. And it's about managing what it is that you do, and what makes you you. Because it's not about the brand, the logo, those things. It's about who you are as an individual. Because let's face it, you're going to attract somebody different than I do. And I'm going to attract all the puppy lovers because I love puppies, and everybody knows I love puppies. So, but you know that going in, right? So we have different people. So we shouldn't all be doing cookie cutter marketing that is just listed, just sold, just listed, just sold. Like, we work. Yep, we do. But what makes me me versus what makes you you? And so the empowered agency is the vehicle to help all agents get to that bottom line and figure out what it is and who you are as an individual, to attract the market that you're looking for, instead of just being everything.
Personal brand, not big company brands.
Correct. Because I've never had a big company brand and I've always been successful in real estate.
I feel like that's just true for like at this point just about any business in general. Like your personal brand is more powerful than the company brand would be because you have personal qualities, like there's a face to the name. So how could people learn more about that piece of it first, the empowered agency component?
So the empowered agency is simple, theempoweredagency.com. It'll bring you to a form. Our copywriters are standing by to give you an assessment of what it is that your social media looks like and how to beef it up and make it better. And we offer different packages to help you get the most for what you're doing and really jumpstart your branding from the get-go. And like you said, you could be in a minute, for 20 years, 30 years. Times have changed and reaching people is really important. And so the empowered agency does help you get to that point.
I love it. All right. That's perfect. I think we should wrap it up there. But I really appreciate your time, Loretta.
Yeah, thank you.